Legalized recreational pot may be heading to the Northeast. Marijuana advocates are taking to the fight now to Maine. In 2 weeks, the state's capital will decide whether to legalize possession for adults 21 and over. The measure does not decide on whether purchasing or selling it is legal. Now, the vote follows victories in Washington and Colorado for pot advocates. A victory in Portland is widely seen by supporters as one of the first dominoes to fall to gain broader acceptance on the East Coast. Joined now by Kevin Sabet, director of Project SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, and author of Reefer Sanity, 7 Great Myths About Marijuana, and Dan Riffle, director of federal policies at the Marijuana Policy Project. Dan, starting with you here, you support marijuana legalization. Why might Portland be the linchpin to the East Coast and wider acceptance there?
Well, we're betting that voters in Portland, just like voters in Colorado and Washington and elsewhere across this country, are tired of the public policy disaster that is marijuana prohibition. They're tired of seeing countless tax dollars wasted arresting and prosecuting 750,000 adults every year for possession of something that's safer than alcohol, and they're ready for a smarter approach. The initiative that's going to be on the ballot in the fall is a prelude for what we expect to be a statewide initiative in 2016 to tax and regulate marijuana just like alcohol.
Kevin, what's your thought on this? Do you see this as the first step for wider acceptance in the East Coast, maybe the first state to make that breach, if you will?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, there's this multi-million-dollar special interest lobby that's trying to essentially create what's going to be the new tobacco industry. And this is why folks like Patrick Kennedy, David Frum, public health advocates from around the world really are coming together and saying we should have a smarter approach. Even if you don't like current marijuana policy, we don't have to go to the other extreme and legalize something and really create a new industry targeting kids. I'm struck by the discussion about school safety and about the mass shootings as of recently, and that the connection with marijuana and mental illness, I think, is something that we should focus on. It's something that the Kennedy Forum is going to be focused on.
This is just possession, though.
Yeah, well, you're right. And then actually, the law in Portland will not set up the retail stores that you're going to see in Washington. In fact, it's not really going to change much. People are not being jailed in Portland City Jail for marijuana. Again, I think the smarter approach is education and treatment, but not necessarily creating a new tobacco industry, which we do.
Dan, respond to that. Also, recreational use of pot is legal in 2 states, as we were mentioning, and your organization, it wants the same in 10 other states. And even though marijuana use is illegal on the federal level, the Justice Department right now is saying it will not prosecute pot users in Colorado and Washington. Here's the head of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Take a listen.
Inordinate profits are made by lawbreakers, and children and communities continue to be harmed. This decision by the U.S. Department of Justice, in our view, will open the floodgates for those who want to legalize marijuana throughout the country.
So address here what Kevin was bringing up, if you can, Dan. Is the Portland strategy just the first of many steps to get that retail sale of pot into the state?
Yeah, Kevin's worried about big marijuana, but the fact of the matter is we already have big marijuana. It's called the Sinaloa cartel and the Zetas cartel. Voters in Washington and Colorado chose to take marijuana out of the hands of lawbreakers, out of the hands of criminals, out of the hands of murderous drug cartels who were responsible for 60,000 deaths in Mexico, and put marijuana, the trade and the industry, in the hands of tax-paying, law-abiding, licensed businesses that are required to obey regulations like carding potential buyers to ensure that they're 21 or over, advertising restrictions, basic, simple restrictions that we would expect on this industry.
Yeah,
and if they don't, they'll lose their license.
You know that every single advertising restriction that was focused on in Colorado and Washington has been struck down by this new industry that's ready to pounce at any chance they can get to, frankly, hook people in order to increase their bottom line. And you also know that drug cartels don't get the majority of their funding from marijuana. They get the majority of their funding from meth, cocaine, heroin, human trafficking. So unless we're ready to legalize all of that, I think it's a different conversation.
All right, Kevin Sabet, director of Project SAM, and Dan Riffle of the Marijuana Policy Project. We'll have to leave it right there. Appreciate your time. That wraps up this